This is Glendon with another segment of The Anatomy of Critical Thinking. Alright, on this session, we're going to address emotional generosity. That's another form of courage that many people don't talk about. And it's really exciting because I was going to talk about something else. I had it all mapped out, everything laid out. And I saw something yesterday that was just 100% perfect for this. And I couldn't believe it. I mean, it just really blew my mind. You may or may not have heard of the group, no doubt. I know you've heard of Gwen Stefani, which you know, Holla Back Girl. Well, I didn't know this until yesterday, but they have a story that exhibits emotional generosity. Now, this is a deep level of courage. Once I share it with you, you'll get it. The group was started by Gwen's brother. She didn't really want to be part of the group, which is so funny. Well, Gwen's brother and the other characters, and they got together and they practiced, and they had a small measure of success. And they had been together for a while, to the point that Gwen and Tony Kazal actually had a relationship for 7 years. Well, as many relationships go, they broke up. Tony broke up with her. And it created something in Gwen that I don't think that she knew was there. They went through the breakup, and you know, Gwen, these are her own words. She said, I just started writing. These lyrics just started coming out of me. And she would pen these lyrics. Now understand, she had broken up with a guy that she was with for 7 years. That's a long time. That's a long-term relationship. And she would call Tony and she's like, yeah, I wrote this and I wrote this. And then Tony's on the other end. And if you've ever been in that position where you've dumped someone and they want to talk to you, it's not really easy. Sometimes it's hard because you know they're going to go to that place like, why can't we work it out? And Tony listened to her, which was the first step of emotional generosity. He listened to her and he did the second thing. He's like, look, you know, I understand you're hurt. Should I leave the group? And this is where Gwen put down the trump card of an emotional generosity. She's like, no, you shouldn't leave the group. And I want you to think about that. How many times have you broken up with someone, you couldn't stand the sight of them, you didn't want to see them, you didn't want to hear the song on the radio, you didn't want to hear any of that stuff. She's in a group. If you know anything about bands, they spend a lot of time together. So she wrote these songs. And she gave him to Tony. Tony's like, yeah, you know, I really don't want to hear this, but with the emotional generosity, this is good stuff. The first song, Don't Speak, #1, 16 weeks. That album sold 16 million copies. To put that in the proper perspective, the group sold 33 million. So one album generated more than 50% of their total sales as a group. And Gwen went on to sell 7 million by herself. Now this is where it gets really grand. They take these songs to the band. Gwen's brother Eric, he wants to leave the band, but he says he'll hold on until they finish this album. So they're going through this. Now, back to the point of the breakup. Here is Gwen, who has penned these heartfelt lyrics. They're coming from the deepest place. They're coming from a lot of pain. She pens this, right? So here's the guy who broke up with her. He's playing bass. Every time they perform this song, it rips both of them apart. Once again, emotional generosity. Because you have to really bury yourself to do something like that once. But to do it on stage in front of 1,000 fans, to do videos, and to travel for 16 months doing that song. Because Gwen said something that's like, you shouldn't leave the group because you're good for the group. And it's bigger than us. Okay, it's bigger than us. Now, this is the girl who didn't want to be part of the group. Actually became the most famous and self-sustaining member of the group because she went on to do a fashion line and several other things. You know, that she's a brand. But this is where it really matters. She gave of herself from the deepest place she could, and she did it again and again and again. Now, let's talk about what happened there. When you come from that place, and many of you, you've been there, but you don't know where you were. Someone in your life died. A child was born. You fell in love. When you allow yourself to go there, to that place, it opens you up. But the thing is, many people are worried about being opened up and vulnerable. What they don't realize is when you open up like that, you open up different parts of your brain. You open up different parts of your spirit and your soul. That's what Gwen did. She was never the same. She just kept going up and up and up. Because when she opened herself up to Tony and the group, and she thought about everyone else but herself, and her heart was breaking. You know, I'm a writer. When you write that stuff, because, you know, a lot of writers are like, oh, that's not about me. I just made that up. Sometimes that's true. Sometimes it's bullshit. A lot of times what writers write about is very real to their lives. Very, very real. So she did this. Now, what I'm saying to you with emotional generosity is when you're in the position that you have a really, really hard time in your life. You're going through hell. You may be sick. You may be dealing with an illness. You may have financial problems. But the thought process is on you. It's strictly on you. No one else. It's just you. I will say when you step it up and you go to that place of an emotional generosity, you're going to grow as a person spiritually in ways that you can't imagine. Because as much as we think we know about ourselves, there's a lot we don't know about ourselves. And until you get in that position, you don't know what you're going to do. You can think what you can do, you can presume what you're going to do, but you really don't know what you're going to do. Now, with this, there are many of you who are going through hell. There's in this group. I let you talk amongst yourselves and comment amongst yourselves because what I want this group to be is to grow and to be self-directed. Because I can come in and just like drop something and then people follow, but I don't want that. I want each and every one of you to grow to a leadership position. And you're not going to get that way with me just saying, do this, do this. You know, and people are stepping up and people are moving. And there's going to be more of that as we go down this road. There's going to be a lot more of that. But emotional generosity, I want you to think about yourself. When was the last time that you were going through hell and you thought of someone else? It's hard because in our culture, we're taught to be exceptionally selfish. It's all about the individual. That's one of the reasons that families are breaking down. That's one of the reasons friendships are not as strong as they were, because we're taught to worship at the altar of the individual. So this week's, and this is a twofer because there's going to be the mental component of the hustler mindset, and then we're going to jump off into the fiver thing tomorrow. But what I want you to do is to really sit back and think about times that you were going through hell. Because when you are going through hell and then you can elevate and think of someone else, you're going to strengthen yourself in the way that you never have before. Because it's very easy to be selfish, and it's very limiting. Because the deal is, with selfishness, you close up. You close up, you protect all your tender parts, and you tend to shut people out. But if you can push past the pain and actually think of someone else, you're going to get like a deep, deep level of appreciation for life. And it's going to change you in good ways. I always thought I was somewhat generous to a degree. I had no clue until my best friend died. Because, when you go to hospice, it's not a happy place, because as you walk in and you see people in beds and you see their families, everyone there is in their final days. It's really a special person that can work at one of those hospice facilities, because I remember a few of the staff came to Francine's funeral, and I thought that was very nice because they deal with this all the time. And it was just, she was a really sweet person. Everywhere she went, people just loved her. But the deal is, going through that experience, getting up, going to make sure that she had her morphine, call her sister and say, look, she's got a morphine for the morning, you're good till maybe 2 or 3 o'clock. Because we just, people went in, took care of her. And I didn't want to be there. I didn't really want to be there because I don't deal with death very well. My grandmother died 30 some years ago, and I was messed up for 20, but that's just me. But by opening that, I became stronger in ways I didn't know, because everything kind of shifted in me. Because, you know, this is about making money. The Hustler Mindset Project is about making money, but there are things that are more important than money that if you strengthen those and get those together, it would actually help you to make money, which in a strange way is a beautiful thing. But with emotional generosity, you have to really kind of open yourself up. And that's another reason that this stuff is going on here in the Hustler Mindset, because we can have these same type of conversations on YouTube, and then the bully-hoos, the people who are bored, they're just going to come in and be distractors, because here we're talking about real life and death issues. And that's really not for everyone, because everyone's not at that level of maturity that they can even talk about it without it becoming a joke, or someone who just wants attention will come in and say crass and mean things. And it could happen on any video. I've seen it over the last 3.5 years. But as you open up yourself, and I want you to think about this, going back to No Doubt, Gwen Stefani, and Tony Cazell, and as I watch them on television, there's still a love between those two. And it may not be a romantic, you know, I got to go home and take your clothes off love, but there's still a deep and abiding love between those two. And I could see it. Because, you know, she was like, when she looked at him, and she's like, no, you're not deleting. He looked at her. They actually drew close. Now, both of them are married to different people, but they still love each other, and they still respect each other, because there was an easy way that they talked about this difficult issue. And the thing is, because both of them were willing to go through that pain, they're both set pretty much for life, because that album is still selling. And that was, what, 12, 15 years ago that it came out? And it's still selling. And the thing is, Gwen is still doing things, and they're getting together to do a reunion tour. And I just looked at that. Many people were touched. And when you want to think about emotional generosity as a musician or a writer, you get to touch more people than the average person. And I listened to the song. I remember when the song came out, but knowing what she was going through when she wrote it and when they put it together, and knowing what she went through to perform it, gave me a new appreciation of the song. I was just like, wow, that's deep. And that's the thing, that's the beauty of emotional generosity. In the beginning, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. It's going to rip you apart. It's going to be a trip, because we are taught to be very, very selfish. Very, very selfish. Now, this is how you create emotional generosity. As we, if you go back to the video, be careful what you believe in. There's a lot of self-talk going on in your head every day. And the thing is, you don't really pay attention to it, because those are your thoughts, and that was normally happens. So you have to kind of slide a new directive into your thought process. Something different, something unique. And this is something that I would do when I was having a hard day. And it's kind of strange. One of my favorite places, and I had to cut back on this, Waffle House. I was having like a really horrible week, terrible week. Website had literally many pages of my book on. The owner was acting like, what, really? Did I do something wrong? Something was going on funky with YouTube. My website got hacked. I was just like, what the hell's going on? And I went to Waffle House, and there was this person who appeared to be homeless. Were they homeless or not? I don't know. And I was like, what are you having today? And, she's like, I'm just going to get the sandwich. I said, no, what do you really want? And like, I want the All-Star. And I was like, you got the All-Star. And I was like, whatever she's having, I'm paying for it. I didn't ask her name, didn't want to know. It was just, I had to push past all my stuff, because when you dwell on your problems, something very bad happens. That's all you think about. And when you think about your problems all the time, you increase the power of those negative emotions. Because what you're doing, every time you have that thought about, oh, I'm going through this, oh, I'm going through X, I'm going through Y, I'm going through Z, you give those thoughts more power. Think about that. Think about, I'll give you another example. There was a certain county here in Georgia that I was just like weirded out. I've gotten all my tickets virtually since I've been in Georgia in that county. And I would like be driving through, and it's like, and I used to speed be honest about it. I was like, I would start thinking about a ticket. Bam. It was a month. I got 3 tickets in 1 month. I was like, what the hell? And every time I went through that, I was like, I'm going to get a ticket. And I would like slow down. I would ride in the right-hand lane. But for some reason, those cops would always get behind me and run my tag. It was just weird. And I was just like, what the hell? It got to a point, I stopped going to that county. I would go around because it was just ridiculous. Because tickets are no joke. You lose money paying a fine. You lose money because your insurance goes up. So one day I started thinking, and this is, the Hustler Mindset Project is really good for me because it reminds me of things that I know, but I should practice more. So I should say thanks for that. And I had to start sitting there thinking, I'm not going to get a ticket. I'm not going to get a ticket. Not going to get a ticket. Not going to get. I know it sounds real simple. And I had to start thinking it because what I had done is just carved on my brain the fact that I was going to ticket to the point that I was making it happen over and over and over. So when you think about negative stuff repeatedly, you pull up all of, because your subconscious mind doesn't care if what you want is good. It doesn't care what you want is bad. It doesn't give a damn. It's just like, oh, this is what you're all about. We're going to manifest this into reality. We're going to pull all the power from the cosmos. We're going to do all this stuff, and we're going to bring this to your life. And when I got really good, and it takes practice of controlling your thoughts, because I can actually stop a negative thought now. And it took me a long time to get here because it's starting to creep in, and I like immediately turned around like, that's not going to happen. It took a long time to get to that point. And when you're thinking about that stuff, you have to insert something positive. And I bought this person, still don't know her name. And what happened was the people at Waffle House, it's like, a guy saw what you did and he came in and he did it for someone else. And then someone else did it and someone else did it and someone else did it. So there was this chain of goodwill created by a simple act. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing mind-boggling, just a simple thing that I was able to help out a person who looked like they needed a little help. It made me feel a little bit better. It did not chase away all the demons. I still had stuff, but it allowed me to refocus. And that's what you have to do, because when you're experiencing emotional generosity, when you are like refocusing by shedding a lot of those negative emotions. And I read a book, and I'm beginning to think it's true that all diseases are manifested into some type of stress. And it is really, really a bad thing. But with emotional management and being emotionally generous, you kind of push out negativity. You kind of push out, lessons I had to learn. Like I had to stop going off on people on YouTube, because it's like the more I went off on people, the more people like that would show up. It was like, oh, he's going to do this. And I don't know, they just like were alerted. And it's like, antenna went up, oh, he's going to do that. And they would come. I stopped it. They went away. There's a few people who still try, and I just block them and move on, because ultimately, moving forward, being successful, being happy, kills them. It kills them. So I'll share another story with you. One of the people that was I think was responsible, I don't know, but I have a strong feeling in my heart he was responsible for the hacking of my site. He's resorted to very cheesy, very crazy ways to get traffic to his website. Those websites that you go and you start reading and it looks really funny because you could tell it was written by a computer. He's got one of those sites up with his name direct. And I was like, if he's resorted to that, a lot of bad stuff's happening. Because that type of stuff usually turns people off. Some people don't care. They may click on the site, but I was just amazed that he was doing that. But what I want you to do is to find a person, anyone, preferably someone you don't know, and do one small thing. You can buy them lunch. You can, whatever comes to mind, do one small thing for them. That's your goal for this week. One act of kindness. Even if you're going through hell, even if you're damn near broke. And this is when it really, really kicks in. Because, like I said, everything did not just turn around like overnight with that deal with the website hacking and everything. It was a process, but I did a good thing and I refocused and I started thinking of the future. That's something that's very challenging to do when you're catching hell, because the immediate here and now is so overwhelming. You don't even see a future. You don't even you're like, what future? What's that? But you, once again, emotional generosity. You have to give yourself the courage. You have to give yourself the permission to actually believe that in all this hell and shit that's going on, that tomorrow's going to be better. And I can tell you, it may not be 100% better, but it will be better. It's going to be better. And success is not this grand leap. In our society, we're like in love with the atypical. There are some people who are overnight successes, but that's not the norm. Usually success is a progression. Going back to Gwen Stefani, Tony Kaiser of the group, no doubt, she had a relationship with this guy for 7 years. Their band was marginally successful in 7 years. Put out an album, did like 100,000 in sales over a period of years for a band, which was pretty good. But when you look at all the time and the effort that goes into creating a song, the practice, the touring, the fact that you don't have a life, because one of the reasons that I didn't want to do the show, and I've consulted on a few shows. Typically, they're going to film a season of reality shows, 6 weeks, 2 months. But it's going to be like, bam, you're going to be doing it every week. If you have to travel, you can be in different countries. I like travel for pleasure, but that type of travel, I hate it. I feel unsettled, and I don't really sleep well in places I'm not familiar with. That's when I had a job working with while I was traveling. I had to really work hard because, even with me telling myself that I'm going to be fine, I'm going to sleep, it's just difficult for me to sleep in a place I'm not really comfortable or familiar with. Now, what's funny, when I started traveling and I go to really nice hotels and the bed's super fluffy and it's not creepy and there's no moldy smell, I sleep like a baby. Maybe I'm a hotel snob. I don't know. But if it's kind of crummy and I think that a Rodney the Rat's going to run by, I'm going to be up all night. But the thing is, with emotional generosity, this is to the core of courage. Many times in your heart, you know what the right thing is. You know what it is. You know what you should do. But there could be something as simple as your father will not be happy with you if you did that. Your mother won't be happy, or your husband won't be happy, or your kids won't be happy. It can be something simple. Or people that you love and respect, if you make this little change in your life, they're not going to be happy with you. So you don't. Once again, emotional generosity. Sometimes you have to be emotionally generous to yourself, which means I'm going to do what's right for me. And it sounds selfish, but if you really think about it, if you do what's right for you, take care of your emotional inner world, you're better off to other people. Because in our society, give the example of parents and kids. As a parent, you're supposed to do any and everything to make sure that your child has whatever, which is a good thing. But what that has matriculated into is people working 3 or 4 jobs to make sure that their kids are in every sport possible, or has every material thing possible, but they don't really have family. I was out at a restaurant this weekend, and I noticed there was this family, because they all look like each other. So, the kids look like the woman, and the kids and the boys look like the man and the woman. 3 kids, 2 parents. Dad had an iPad. Mom was on her phone. And all the kids were texting her online. And, I mean, seriously, one of the kids was eating with one hand and texting with the other. Now, the word was spoken. I'm not kidding you. It just blew my mind. They're a family, right? But they're not linked together. And that's something else you should do. I know this is online, and this is something I do periodically. I purposely leave my phone home. I know it sounds strange, because I was one of those people, and that's the reason if you didn't see the video, I sold my iPad because between being on the laptop, being on the desktop, between my phone, I was spending 90% of my life online, and that's just not cool. And I had to really crank it down. That's why, you send me an email, you might hear from me. It could be one of those days where I'm just like, I'm not doing email, and it's not like to be rude or anything, but based on my personality, once I start, I feel that I need to answer a lot of emails. And I could be there 2, 3, 4, 5 hours just answering emails. And I had to make a decision. I was like, okay, that's not going to work. Because you have people who are paying you and you can't really get to them because you're answering this avalanche of emails. Once again, emotional generosity. I was like, hey, I had to be emotionally generous to myself to say, look, this is not going to work. And yes, there are some people disappointed, but the people who matter aren't, which is the best thing. So that's the cool thing. Now, how do you get to this spot? Number one, you have to identify that it's actually happening. When was the last time you were really happy? What do you think about that? I know it's a strange question. I mean, like really happy. That you just had unbridled joy. Think about that. And I want you to backtrack to that moment. And I want you to think about why it happened and what made you happy. And I guarantee you, money will not have anything to do with it. I was like utterly thrilled watching football this weekend because it's a passion of mine. And I actually was watching LSU play Auburn. And it was a great game. Auburn really stood up. I mean, they have nothing to be ashamed of. If a guy had caught the ball, LSU would have been totally out of the national title race because Auburn's unranked. And they would have been beaten. I mean, they took a tumble to number 3 spot. But I like the game because football at a high level is very indicative of life. Because in the span of 4 quarters, you're up, you're down, you're up, you're down. And what's really good is when you see a team like Auburn, and understand, roll tide, baby. I am not an Auburn fan, but I can recognize when someone's really standing up. And the Auburn team stood up. They stood up. They really put it to LSU. LSU had caught hell. And they were convinced they had a chance. And just one mistake. They had a punt that was muffed. If he had let the ball go or just caught it, they probably would have won. And that's how life is. You can do so many things right and just one thing goes wrong. And you don't get the ultimate outcome. But the thing about that is that's a better team now. They played LSU very hard. They know that they can play a decent team and not get blown out the building. It was a confidence builder. Yes, they lost, but it still was a confidence builder, and that's how the coach is going to run it. But with that, you got to have some joy in the midst of your pain, in the midst of your craziness. Because, I've got people who are really, really going through it. And actually, they inspire me because it's real easy to look at someone who's wealthy, someone who apparently doesn't have issues, and go, yeah, that's great. I want that life. You really don't know. Another thing that helps me is I used to work at a hospital by the name of Scottish Rite. I used to work in the emergency room. They primarily cater to children, between infant and up to maybe 16, something. I think the cutoff was 18. I would just see little kids come in the emergency room all broken up. Car accidents, abuse, accidents on the football field, basketball. I had this one kid who was going up for a dunk and his finger got caught up in the basket and damn near ripped it off. It was horrible to look at. And then I would have kids like that. And this guy almost ripped his finger off. He was the nicest kid I ever met. He was, well, thank you, sir, because I was one of the people, I had to draw blood from him and everything. And this guy's, you ever tear a fingernail? That is some of the worst pain on the planet. And he was going through it. And I knew he was in pain. And then they gave him some morphine stuff and he was out. But I learned to look at people who were really going through it. And I looked at how they managed it. Another one, his name's Zach. I used to work in the MOB, that's the medical office building. People would come in for their pre-cancer treatment. Before you got your chemo, you had to get blood work drawn. They would come in, there was this one guy, super nice guy. He was 16, he had a rare form of leukemia. always happy and always upbeat. And I know one day after his mother left, dude just kind of like collapsed, because he was in so much pain. And, I helped him up and everything. And his mom came in, he stood up, sat back up, and he was cool. And I just looked at him. He was the one with leukemia, but he was standing tall so his mother would not worry any more than she was. Unfortunately, he didn't make it. His mother was a hairdresser. His father, I think his father worked in the salon too. And one day, I noticed they didn't come anymore. And I inquired, and it's like, yeah, he passed. And I sent them like a little thank you note for, their time of coming there, and, just saying what a wonderful, well, not a thank you note, but a condolence note. And I look at that, and that's what I go back to, because it's very easy to be seduced by winning and thinking you're better than you are. But when you look at people who are fighting for their lives, who are really doing stuff that matters, it gives you a different perspective. Now, I'm going to close with Gwen. Now, this is going to get to the money section. As I remember, I told you, they sold 16 million albums. 33 million albums. And that one album, written from a place of truth, hurt, pain, honesty, it was their best-selling album of all time. Why was that? Gwen did not really care. A lot of times, we're not the best people we can be because we spend too much time worried about what other people are going to think. It took me a long time. I was 30-something before I just got to the point where I just didn't really care what people thought of me anymore. And my life just got amazingly better because an old saying from Alabama, I didn't get this, I got it from my grandmother. No matter what you do, some people are going to love you, some people are not going to like you. You might as well just be yourself. And it's true. But for years, I didn't follow that advice. And she didn't care. She really didn't care. I want you to think about that, because in our culture, if someone dumps you, you're supposed to be mean. You're supposed to cross them off the list. You're supposed to forget about them. She didn't do that. She didn't do that. Her brother started the group. Her brother brought him in. She could have easily went to her brother and was like, he's a bum, I want him out. Probably would have happened. And she never would have wrote those lyrics. She never would have, they would have never as a group had that acclaim. They would have never made the money. And she would have never elevated herself. Because when you exhibit emotional generosity and you elevate yourself, you open yourself up to new possibilities. She said, I know I can write songs. Number one, she wrote a song that became number one in the country for 16 weeks. If you're counting, that's 4 months. That's a quarter. That's a very long time to be at number one. Very long time. She had no training as a songwriter. She didn't write, she wrote truth. She wrote how she really felt. And that truth, that honesty from a place of emotional generosity resonated with so many people across the world. Because people are listening to that song. I get it. I'm feeling that. I'm going to buy it. Because it was like bam. You hear a song, you just, man, you get it because it touched you right there. That's what she put out. This is what she put out. This kid, she was a kid. She was a young person who opened herself up to love. When it went wrong, she didn't run from it. She did not run from her feelings. That's another important point. She did not run from her feelings. She didn't bury it all up inside. She didn't deny it didn't happen. She didn't call him an asshole. She just wrote it out and worked it out emotionally in lyrics that actually happened to make her and her group quite wealthy, quite renowned. They received nominations, the whole 9 yards that went with that. That came from one event, emotional generosity. So, I want you to just kind of take that into place, think about that, and really, really look at your life and what you're doing and what you're not doing. Because in the storage auction business, I gave a lot of stuff away. I know you go, well, why don't you give back to the people who lost it? I'll tell you why. It is so challenging, because I don't talk about this in the videos, but there's a lot of people I actually try to do that, And it was more of a pain than it was a blessing. They were mean, they were mad, they were hurt. I didn't know until a long time ago. It was shame. They didn't want to talk to me. I'm the guy that bought their stuff. I'm the guy that knows deep, intimate things. They didn't want to deal with me. They wanted me to go somewhere. It's like I lost my unit. I don't want to listen. I don't want to hear about it. I've already wrote it off. Don't call me up talking about trying to give me this stuff back. There was a few people. It was like, hey, and I just learned, if you're in the storage auction business, the people who ask for it back, work with them. The ones who don't ask for it, forget it and move on. Because you're just going to open up a can of worms that you may not want to digest. But I used the Craigslist free session extensively. I was always in there because in rotating inventory, I'll give you an example. Microwaves. You get those all the time in storage units. Coffee pots. You get those. Knickknacks, picture frames, mirrors, small mirrors, table accessories. I don't care how nice they were. And my partner and I, we went round and round until she saw it. But once we had better and nicer stuff, everything that was lesser, bam, dollar section. I don't care what it looked like. People would come in, oh my God, this is $40 at Pier 1. It's only $1? Yes. You won't believe what he's giving away. I just got this thing. You need to come here really quick. All the time in the dollar section. People would go there. They would get great deals, get on the phone, call a girlfriend, call their husband, call their family, and that $1 sale, once again, emotional generosity, because it was hard for me to commit to this. And usually, we got a person, we got them. They may not come every Saturday, but they came frequently. And that $1 sale probably led to another 200 because it was looking beyond what it was worth. And also, with storage auctions, you get so much stuff so quickly. You got to get it faster than you can sell it at the price that it should command. But if you buy your units properly, and give you an example. Say I buy a 10 by 20. It's full from the root to the tutor. That's going to be anywhere from 500 to 2,000 items, including clothing, maybe even more. Pull out the furniture and everything, it's still going to leave you 400 items, 450, seriously. So, price it out on the dollar section, it's $400. Really nice unit, it usually all sells. Then it's just moving. Word of mouth happens. And the thing is, the thing that you wouldn't expect to do to work well, it did. Because giving stuff away actually was kind of fun. Because some people would come and I'll put up the free section, and then there would be people who would come and they'll get the free stuff, and then they would see other nice stuff and they're like, is that free? No. Is it going to be free? Look, you got your free stuff and go. I would be mean to those people because, look, you got some, you didn't even say thank you. You're trying to get the best stuff for free. Come on now. So, but I would also get people like this. Wow, thanks. I really appreciate this. We're going through a hard time. I had the mother come in and she didn't believe it. She's like, this bedroom set's free. It was a white set, particle board, but it was in pretty good condition. And it was just really odd. And I knew people weren't going to like it because people were like, they just walked by it. It was on the floor for 4 weeks. And I was like, yeah, it's for sale. She's like, it's pretty nice. A mattress? Yep, mattress too. And she called her brother. He came in the truck and he said, oh, this is free? Really? And they ended up spending $250. Didn't happen all the time. A lot of times they just came, got the free stuff, looking for more free stuff. But she spent $250 that day and she became a lifelong customer. So there's a lot of ways that being emotionally generous, and I just gave it away because one, our warehouse would have been stacked up from the ruler to the tutor with stuff everywhere, and we would have made less money and paid more money to make less money, if that makes any sense. So just some stuff to think about. But I will put it in the email, the other stuff that's going to happen this week, because I'm going to add a few more things. And that's it. So just something for you to think about, and I will see you in the next video.